to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Whoa. Everybody got opinions, let it go into my ear, then I block that. Put me on
Afternoon
stage,
Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
that phony, I am not that. What are y'all doing out here? What are y'all doing out here? Maybe you should spend a little less
Patrick Wheeler with you here on Thursdays. We continue the action here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Tom Dorado will join me in hour number 2. And just a layout of the show. So with him, I'm going to get to a lot of college football talk as the ACC has now made a decision about what they're going to do with their upcoming season. The SEC, I know, was meeting today. I still have not seen any official word from them. That very well could take place some point during the show. If that does, obviously I'll be all over it. So him and I are going to talk about that in hour number 2, as well as some really interesting news coming out of the Pac-12. And on top of that, one school officially has had to quarantine some players because they got coronavirus because they were partying. And we're at that point. So all that's coming up in hour number 2 with Tom Dorado. I'm kicking it off with a lot of stuff to get to here in hour number 1, starting off with Major League Baseball and Joe Kelly, because we got to talk about it a little bit yesterday. Tom and I kind of went back and forth. He wasn't a fan of what Joe did and made sure I knew about it. It broke the news while we were on air. We had to get off to get to Tom's Where Are They Now, but broke the news that he has indeed received an 8-game suspension for his actions, which again, all it was he threw at one player, struck out another, and then taunted him. He didn't actually hit another batter. There was never a batter actually hit in all of this. There was no brawl. It was a socially distanced argument, which, honestly, I mean, if social distance guidelines and coronavirus guidelines weren't in place in Major League Baseball, something tells me either Carlos Correa would have charged the mound on Joe Kelly, or there would have been a benches clearing brawl. We might have seen an actual real fight going on in the field. And I still am of the belief that that's going to take place at some point this year. Because when more pitchers start throwing at Astros batters, because it's inevitable, it's going to happen, at what point is enough finally enough to the Houston players where they just say, screw it, I'm going after this guy, I'm going to lay him out, I don't care what happens. Because you can put guidelines out there all you want, but how long do they get followed? And it was pretty interesting to me too, when the pitch was sailed over Alex Bregman's head. Right, it missed his head. I mean, it was pretty close. 97-mile-an-hour heater from Joe Kelly. They zoom in on his face, on Alex Bregman's face, and he's got this look that I could define as that look where he's like, oh boy, here we go. But there was also a little hint of, I'm afraid. There was also a little bit of a fear amongst his facial expression, like, is this my life now? At one point, I was one of the most dominant hitters amongst this team. I still can be that, but now in the back of my mind, when I'm up here hitting, I got to be ready to dodge 97-mile-an-hour heaters that could possibly come at my dome. That's not a good way to have to go up there and hit against Major League pitching. That's not going to result in a ton of positive outcomes, I don't think. So there was this really, really unique look on his face. I encourage you to go check that out if you haven't seen what he looked like after that sailed over his head. But Joe Kelly receiving 8 games, this stat right here is wild. In a normal 162-game season, that would have been a 22-game suspension. 22 games. And he didn't even hit a guy. On top of that, you get the manager for Los Angeles. He gets tossed Dave Roberts gets tossed for a game. He's losing out on a game, and Dusty Baker was fined. So let me get this straight. Let me add all these numbers up. Joe Kelly loses 8 games. Dusty Baker gets fined some amount we don't know, and then Dave Roberts loses a game, and nobody was even hit. Look, Rob Manfred has absolutely botched this entire thing once again. And if anyone has listened to this show before, they know that, look, I'm willing to give credit when it's due. Even if it's a dumb person that consistently makes dumb decisions like Rob Manfred, if he does something right, like he did when handling the Marlins situation, I'll say good job. But this kind of reminds me like the NCAA in a way. Because the NCAA can never get out of their own way. They always, even if they do something good in the eyes, productive in the eyes of a lot of people, it immediately gets turned around. Almost scary how fast it gets turned around into the wrong decision on the next topic. Well, same thing with Rob Manfred. You know, he handles the Marlins situation, I thought, pretty dang well. But then he comes back, hands out an 8-game suspension to Joe Kelly, and ultimately the only person punished for the Astros cheating is Joe Kelly. That another player on another team got more punishment than any Astros players or the entire Astros team. That is absolutely inexcusable. It can't happen. I hope that Joe Kelly wins this appeal, because he's going to appeal. And I hope he wins, because this is one of the worst decisions. Look, I made the point yesterday how bad this is going to look for Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred and the Astros. This all started because the MLB commissioner doesn't know what he's doing. With him having a chance at a slam dunk punishment. I mean, it was laid up there. All he had to do was throw it down. He could have teed off. It was a layup, a slam dunk, and he botched it. He completely botched it. Let Houston off with nothing. It's the equivalent to me of you're going 90 miles an hour down the freeway in a 75 mile an hour speed limit. You're going 90 miles an hour. State trooper pulls you over and says, "It's okay, buddy, just be careful next time." That's what happened in Major League Baseball with the Houston Astros. And let me say this. How could you not want to say something to somebody like Carlos Correa after what he said in the offseason? When he was eventually asked about it and gave an answer, and he retaliated to what Cody Bellinger said and said the people should just shut the F up if they don't know what they're talking about with this. Like Carlos Correa, he painted that target on his back. Somebody like Joe Kelly has the absolute right. I don't care if he wasn't on the team when this all happened with the Dodgers. He has absolute right in my book to go after him. You know why? Because Rob Manfred didn't. So if he's not going to take it into his own hands, somebody like Joe Kelly will. Bottom line. This was all set up by Rob Manfred's inability to go out there and punish correctly. I mean, this was one of the easiest punishments. It should have been. One of the easiest decisions ever made. Anybody with a functioning brain realizes that the Houston Astros should have lost the World Series because they cheated, or should have been vacated the opportunity of making the postseason this year. But instead, they got nothing. Everybody gets to play like everything's normal. And to me, that's the issue. It sets a precedent that in Major League Baseball, you can literally cheat, get found out, admit to it, and get away with it. And that's not where we should be. So no wonder everybody is cheering Joe Kelly, even though he threw a fastball at the guy's head. Look, I never 100% agree that that was the right way to go about it. But guess what? You're never going to hear me come on here and say, "Oh, please stop trying to hit the Houston Astros." Look, if they weren't punished, by the one guy that had the opportunity, then Major League Baseball players are going to take it upon themselves to do so. Let's go to the phone lines during the afternoon sports drive. Go ahead.
Patrick.
Yes, sir.
You keep saying this is Skip.
Hey, Skip, what's up?
You keep saying that nobody was punished. The GM was fired. The manager was fired.
Skip.
Beltran was fired.
Who cares? Those guys.
You can't say no one was punished when all these people were punished and lost their job.
No. Doesn't matter if you're not on the field. Because those guys also actively took part in it that were on the field, right? And they're getting nothing.
I'm not saying they were punished enough, but you can't say that they weren't punished at all.
So technically an owner was punished. But to me...
No, a GM was fired. A manager...
A GM, yes. But
Carlos Beltran was a player and got fired.
He went to coach and got fired. But so what? That doesn't, to me, when I look at the players that are actively taking part of it right now, that are the ones that cause the outcome to be what it is on the field, to me, that's no punishment. You can fire all the coaches and GMs that you want, but if the players are the ones that are making this or that happen on the field, if nothing is done about that, then there's no punishment.
Let me tell you why the 8-game suspension was not a bad move.
Yeah, go for it.
They were told not to retaliate. They retaliated. They were told not to do something, and they expressly did it. For him to not punish them at all would be like, just ignore anything that I ever say and go do what you want to do. It's anarchy.
Yeah, so with the Astros, so to that logic, somebody should have gone out to the Houston Astros and said, hey, please don't cheat.
Well, I guess. I don't know. I can only tell you in this situation, for him not to deal out any punishment would be to say it's open season on the Astros, which as much as some people like yourself would love, and I'm not an Astros fan. I hate what they did. But I don't think you can issue an order, have it ignored, and then not do anything about it.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting from this is, from now on, Rob Manfred should go out there and say, hey, everyone else, please don't cheat anymore, and if you do cheat, now I'm going to have to enforce it.
I mean, if we want to take it to this extreme, sure, but for this situation, don't retaliate, don't throw at guys, let me handle the punishment. And I'm all for baseball policing itself, but there has to be a line before it becomes just a vigilante attitude where every Astro, whether he was with the team or not, is going to get thrown at.
Right. But this whole thing is Rob Manfred's fault for not issuing an actual... Look, I agree. There technically was a punishment. I've said that before. Like, I say no punishment. I'm saying that as in I don't believe there was really anything that should have been done that wasn't done, for instance. But when you look at it here, everything that Rob Manfred had the opportunity to do, okay, and didn't do, he set this up. He knew this was going to happen, or he should have. At least I hope he did. So this is his fault. Bottom line.
Yes, I'll give you that. Yeah.
So when it comes to, and look, I never come on here and want to say that everybody should just go and try to hit the Astros in the head with 97-mile-an-hour heaters, but it is, as we all know, as you know as well, Major League Baseball will govern themselves. The unwritten rules still apply even in 2020. And if somebody who had the opportunity, like Rob Manfred did, to punish these guys isn't going to do it in a situation as egregious as what this was, then he has opened the door. I don't care if he said it or not. I mean, what he said about no retaliation, like, that was a huge waste of breath, and I think he should have known that as he was saying it. Because guys are going to do it.
Have you seen the movie Airplane?
Yeah.
Okay. There's this scene where everybody's lined up in the aisle to smack the woman to get her to calm down. That's what you were going to have in Major League Baseball if you just allowed everybody to have a turn throwing at the Astros. Now one guy's done it. It's an 8-game suspension, and if you're the Yankees, are you going to risk losing a starting pitcher?
Yeah. I actually said that somebody like the Dodgers or the Yankees. Now they may not go with starting pitchers. They may have some reliever do it. but they're actually good enough in a 60-game season to me where it doesn't even matter. Like the Dodgers losing Joe Kelly for 8 games, like I don't see that really affecting them at all. But even if that they see this punishment, they go, okay, he got 8 games for throwing at a guy. Maybe So maybe all I have to do is let's make it to where it kind of looks like it's on accident or something. I don't hit him, but I throw near him. I back him up off the plate or something like that. And if I'm even getting 8 games, I think most guys are like, okay, it was worth it.
Well, if it's equivalent to a 22-game suspension, I can't see why you would want to lose one of your starting pitchers in a year where the talent isn't necessarily going to be all that great anyway. If you have people going out for just regular injuries and then COVID and everything else, you got to keep the talent that you've got.
Yeah, no, if I was orchestrating this, I would tell my starters to try to shy away from it if they can help themselves. But if I got a reliever that just I feel like has the opportunity here, then I'm going to let him take that more than I would a starting pitcher. I agree with you on that.
All right, that's all I had.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, look, just like Skip said, like I know that there was a suspension or there was guys fired or leave their positions. I know that. But when I say nothing was done, I'm talking about in the larger scheme of things where, like I just basically said, how did I say this? On the highway. That was my comparison. You know, it's like, well, you got caught explicitly breaking the law, and it says I should do this to you, but I'm actually not really going to do anything. Because, yeah, I know, again, technically there was stuff done, but nowhere near enough. Nowhere near enough at all, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. So, people that understand the unwritten rules of baseball, too, also understand that the Astros are going to be under fire for a long time. Nobody knows when this stops, but I'm telling you, Rob Manfred's decision to not punish as hard as was warranted, because if cheating like the Astros didn't warrant the removal of a World Series or didn't warrant the ability to not go into the postseason, what does? If there was ever a let's throw the book at them, it was this. Because there's been plenty of teams that have cheated in the past. But look, it's one thing in my mind when you're in Major League Baseball, cheating technically, right? Or finding competitive advantages that are not allowed within the rule book has always been a part of the game, been a part of every game. But when you do it so blatantly in an era of technology where you're out of your mind if you don't think someone's either not going to be a whistleblower or find out, then you deserve to be punished. Bottom line. And they were not punished enough. They were not punished enough. Joe Kelly is the one that gets the brunt of all this. He receives an 8-game suspension while no other players get suspension. I remember when they were given immunity in this. But that right there was the first mistake the Major League Baseball made. Telling all the Houston Astros players that you guys are going to be safe from this. We know you were the reason this happened. We know that you were the ones that took part in it. But you're going to be okay. Like, that fired everybody up when they found that out. But I'm telling you, the optics of this situation right now are not good. Like, Rob Manfred, he needs to go. I bring up numerous times that he has just messed up royally. I mean, remember Roger Goodell for the longest time was like the buffoon of all commissioners in sports. Well, move over Roger Goodell because you got a new king on the dumb throne that's about to dethrone you. I mean, seriously, it is that bad to me. So, I'm still of the ilk, free Joe Kelly. I hope he wins his appeal because he doesn't deserve to get as many games as he got. Astros, they're a mess. Also last night, nothing really went down. I watched most of the game. I think a lot of people were hoping there'd be something else, and there wasn't really. But I will say this, I don't think Houston's off the hook. Somebody else is going to do it. Also, let's remember this. Major League Baseball cited Joe Kelly's past intent at throwing at players as part of the reason for the suspension. So maybe the next guy that throws, air quotes, at a player might find a way to get away with it if he hadn't done anything in the past. If they can't prove that it was on purpose. All right, let's go back to the phone lines real quick here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's just no justice in sports. These people won a World Series championship. They're multimillionaires. You're 100% correct. He's botched it completely. He's the doofus of commissioners. And now he's fining people 8 games. Oklahoma State's got a basketball team. We're full of 18, 20-year-olds that did nothing wrong. And I know we're not talking about Major League Baseball, but they're banned from postseason play. And this bunch of multimillionaires who cheated to win a World Series gets no penalty. It's just absurd to think that this went on. Now, let me ask you this, and I'll get off. As we go forward, can you not pitch inside now to Houston? I mean, forget trying to hit the guy, but can I not throw inside? Because if I miss about 6 inches off inside up, am I going to get thrown out? I mean, is that where this is headed? And I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the phone call. No, that's a great point. I actually was, I can't remember if I talked to Tom about that on air yesterday or not, but we had brought that point up, and it was funny. I thought about it because I'm watching the Cardinals game last night, and Daniel Ponce de Leon loses control of a breaking ball, and it cuts inside a little bit on a guy. And you could tell, it wasn't on purpose at all. You know how you can kind of tell when some pitches are there's intent behind them? You can tell when a guy's trying to brush a batter off the plate compared to that one just slipped out of his hand most of the time. It was one of those. And it made me think to myself, just like that caller said, when a pitcher against Houston goes up there, loses control, is there going to be immediate reaction from the home plate umpires from now on? They're like, warning, warning. The next one that comes inside, regardless of if you intended to or not, you're out of here. And that's crazy. That should not be the case. That ultimately comes out and says, look, we have to make sure that this doesn't get out of hand. Like, some guys are going to miss location, and if that results in an ejection or a fine or anything, they were going to have even more problems. But I told Tom this too. Umpires, look, I know they're supposed to officiate the game with objectivity and not take sides. But guess what? They're baseball guys too. And they're also human beings. How much sympathy do you think they really have for Houston? Really. Unless they're like from that area or grew up an Astros fan. You think who do you think they're going to give leeway to? I don't think it's going to be the Houston Astros. Look, so to me, Houston deserves everything that comes at them this year. 100%. And Carlos Correa, I said it yesterday, I've lost so much respect for him after what he said about Cody Bellinger, after acting like it was no big deal that they blatantly cheated. And that was my problem too. The press conference with Houston, when they came out and talked about it finally, there was no remorse. It would have been one thing if they were like, we're sorry. It was nothing like that. It was, we know we're going to get away with this with very minimal damage. Let me say that. Very minimal damage. Because I'll admit, Skip was right. He said, I've been saying no punishment. Yeah, we all know there was technically some punishment. So I'll just start calling it minimal damage. How about that? Because it was very, very, very minimal. All right, when we come back, I think I've got news on the SEC. Yes, I believe I do. That's next.
Well, I'm not trying to get in the way. Minding my own, got nothing to say about nobody. That's right, nobody.
Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler hanging out with you guys on Thursday. Tom Dorado coming in about 30 minutes for hour number 2. Before I get with him, I've got breaking news out of the SEC, as I expected to come on to get that news at some point here while I was on the air. SEC, get in line, because they are now the next conference to go to a conference-only schedule for college football this year. Look, I got to say I'm pretty surprised because I was going to save this for hour number 2, but I'll get into it a little bit now with ACC's decision, with the ACC decision to go to a conference-only +1 and get those 11 games in. I thought maybe that'd probably be the way that the SEC was going to lean. If they were thinking about canceling any games, it would be, that type of situation where those games that they would keep, that +1 would be a lot of them would be that SEC-ACC matchup, which I think is definitely what the ACC was planning on. They had a couple of those matchups ready to go, and they were going to be some pretty good matchups. Definitely prominent ones. Yeah, Georgia and Virginia and Auburn, North Carolina, for instance. I'm kind of surprised. I'll be honest, I am. So this leaves the Big 12. The Big 12 is the only one standing that has not made the decision yet on what will happen with this upcoming schedule for college football, based off of all the little clues that I've continuously talked about for the last couple of weeks. It still seems to me like they're trying to get in that full type of schedule. Now, does the SEC decision here influence the Big 12 a little bit? I mean, it very well could. Or does the Big 12 go to that option of let's still be the only Power 5 conference to get in this full schedule? I mean, just because the SEC does it doesn't mean the Big 12 has to follow, but the SEC, we all know, does run things in college football. So, yeah, I'm definitely pretty surprised. I mean, you're going to virtually go the entire month of September with no SEC football. That's going to feel pretty weird. I mentioned those couple of games that will definitely be impacted. Alabama obviously had theirs with USC was ruined already. Baylor was in a matchup with who were they with? Ole Miss, I believe. Texas was going to play LSU. That would have been a good one. Ooh, that would have been a really good one. Well, those are all scrapped. So, I don't know. I really hope the Big 12. I came on here and I said that when the Pac-12 and the Big 10 made their decision, I was pretty upset with it, mainly because I thought it was way too early. Now, the SEC ultimately ends up doing the same thing, but at least they waited on it a bit. I mean, I don't know if that helps anything. I thought that the fact that they would wait on it would mean that they had a better chance of playing a full type of schedule. That's what that said, and it led to me to believe was this extra time was so that we could continue to wait and see if we can't pull this off. The Big 12, I believe, is scheduled to meet this upcoming week. Of course, the media day is on Monday. Do they come out with their decision beforehand now? Do they do a good old classic Friday night news dump tomorrow and say that we're only going to conference only now? But it then makes you think, like, what about Oklahoma then already talking about having the plans to move up the game with Missouri State? TCU doing the same thing. What about when Texas said that they're still playing on that normal schedule? I think there's still a lot of hints that point towards the Big 12 trying to keep it somewhat normal. But the SEC influences a lot in college football, and the Big 12 has to be probably considering it. We know they were talking about the +1. Look, if I'm going to take any stab at it in my prediction, I think maybe the Big 12 finds a way to kind of meet in the middle here. And by that, I'm saying they go the ACC route and do the +1. The ACC one, for instance, where their +1 also has to be a team that's in their state, so it's not a huge travel burden. So maybe that ends up being the case for the Big 12. I would have to guess that they might go that way simply because they're not technically scrapping the entire non-conference schedule. But yeah, I'm fairly shocked. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't surprised that the SEC went to non-conference. I thought that definitely the SEC might go ahead and do the +1 as well. I still think that right now is 100% doable. So the Big 12, now it's their time. They're up. They're up to bat. Just to reiterate, before I take my break here, SEC non-conference games have been canceled this year. 10-game conference-only football schedule, and the start of the season will not take place until September 26th. So if you're an SEC football fan, you got a little while longer to wait. Big 12 is up. What will they do? Who knows? It may come sooner than we think, though, in the news. All right, when I come back, before Tom comes on here at hour number 2, one NFL player was ranked extremely low in the top 100 players list. I'll tell you who it was and why he should be higher next.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. I'm ready for the times to get better.
Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network with Patrick Wheeler. Let me say this about the SEC, okay? I'm not extremely, just disappointed because I don't think anybody's really going to complain about just 10 straight SEC matchups. I mean, that's going to be really good football. But there were some games. Now, I know in the past, the SEC, let's be honest, like most Power 5s, play a lot of cake non-conference schedules. But there were some games, like I mentioned, the Texas LSU one, for instance, especially, that I was really looking forward to. And I know that some of the in-state rivalries aren't that great of matchups, but hey, they're still in-state rivalries, and they're a lot of eyes. I mean, they're still fun football to watch. But I'm not going to cry over strictly 10 SEC games. Part of me just doesn't want them to join what the Pac-12 and the Big Ten did, because I think they did it so early and did a lot of it out of fear instead of rational decision-making. That's the part where I'm like, no, SEC, please don't be like them. Come on, be your own. And I still want to sort of say that for the Big 12, but honestly, would I, again, I said this earlier in the year, I would never really be, I don't think anybody would, too upset if it was even just a Big 12 SEC season. You know, no one would even bat an eye or cry about that, unless you're up north somewhere. Well, who cares, though? So, that's the best football. But there were going to be some pretty solid matchups out of conference with the SEC that were going to be worth watching. Same with the Big 12. I mean, I think there's going to be a few that we can look at, but, you know, I don't know. Does Oklahoma State, when you look at their conference, let's be honest, we're obviously going to cover all the games and we're going to talk about all the games and whatever, but when it gets to Big 12, that's when everybody starts really caring, right? Unless there's some type of crazy loss amongst non-conference teams. So I'm not gonna act like I'm just extremely disappointed, but I am still a little surprised. All right, real quickly here before we get to the top of the hour. One of my favorite lists, because I love lists in sports, especially during the summer, but one of the ones, probably the one that gets talked about the most, is the NFL Top 100 Players list. And you want to be on that list if you're an NFL player, obviously, and players care. I mean, they really do. So we get down to the top 5 last night, finally gets revealed. And who comes in at number 1? Think about it to yourself. Who would come into number 1 for you, top player in the NFL right now? Would it be Patrick Mahomes? Well, I got news for you. He didn't come in at number 1 or number 2 or number 3. He came in at number 4. Who came in at number 1, you ask? Lamar Jackson is number 1. Russell Wilson is number 2, and Aaron Donald is number 3. Am I missing something here? Feel free to call and debate this if you think this. I mean, you'll be wrong, but feel free if you agree with the list that Patrick Mahomes isn't supposed to be number 1. I mean, what? His response on Twitter was perfect. All he did was he tweeted the little notepad emoji, taking notes, and it immediately reminded myself of Michael Jordan. In the Last Dance documentary, everybody that watched that remember when he took the notes down, he said, it became personal for me, and a lot of things that people said about him. You just activated the new Michael Jordan. This year's going to be special. You think Patrick Mahomes doesn't care that he's not number one? Look, he was number 4 last year. That was before he got a Super Bowl ring and became Super Bowl MVP. And he didn't move up the list? This is a joke. This list is voted upon by players in the NFL, too. And you sit down, there's videos all the time. You sit down and ask players, who's the toughest quarterback to face? Every single time, it's Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes. Look, I love Lamar Jackson. I think he's a great quarterback. But hasn't even won a playoff game. If anything, shouldn't Russell Wilson be higher than Lamar Jackson? Lamar hasn't even won a playoff game. None of his receivers went over 700 yards last year. He can only he can only run the football for so long. I agree that he is multi-dimensional and extremely talented everywhere that you look on the football field. He's crazy hard to game plan for. But name another quarterback that would come back from a 24-0 deficit in the playoffs and win. Name another quarterback that could do that. Name another one that would come back in the AFC Championship game down 10 and get a victory. Name another one that would come back in the Super Bowl doing all of that at the age of 24. I mean, I got to be missing something here. Was this literally voted on by the players to just make Patrick Mahomes better? I don't even have to bring up stats. I don't even have to bring up stats to compare Lamar Jackson with Patrick Mahomes because they're not close. Since Lamar Jackson has entered the league, there's been this extremely overwhelming love from players, from media, to him. I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes doesn't get enough love from everybody, but there has been this, and what does he back it up with? Yeah, he was league MVP last year. But if you're going to be that good in the regular season, and you've had multiple chances now to get it done in the postseason, and you still can't, really? You're the number 1 player in the league. I must be taking some crazy pills. I just don't get that. Why in the world would you want to activate an untouched beast in somebody like Patrick Mahomes? Everybody knows he's the best player in the league. Everybody. You know how when you're an athlete, you don't have to be an athlete. When you're at your job or whatever you do, and if you have any type of confidence or know that you're good at what you do, a lot of the times you want to tell yourself, and sometimes it's true, right? Look, I'm the best here. I'm the best at what I do. But in the NFL, this is a case where everybody is okay with saying that I'm actually not the best player in the league because it's so overwhelming that we all know who the real best player actually is, and he's over there in Kansas City. Like, to me, this list right here, Lamar Jackson coming in at number 1, is about as crazy as when Mark Ingram said Lamar Jackson should get the same contract, if not more, than Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson has done some great things in the NFL already, and I think he has a hell of a career in front of him, if he stays healthy. But until he can prove to me that he can be a consistent pocket passing quarterback in the NFL, good luck. Because we have seen down the list of guys that were just like Lamar Jackson before him, that could run the football at the quarterback position, but eventually it catches up to you. We all know running backs in the NFL don't have a very high shelf life. And we know why. So Lamar Jackson can rely on his legs for a long time. Hopefully, if he avoids injuries. But there's going to come a point where it has to be about the arm talent. It has to be. That's what NFL quarterbacks are made for, is being able to throw in the pocket and complete third down conversions consistently throughout a ball game, throughout a season, and into the postseason. That's what the best of them do. why in the world should the Ravens not have beat the Titans in the postseason last year? Because they couldn't stop Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson couldn't get it to his receivers. Now, I'll admit, there wasn't a ton of talent, but guess what? If he's going to be the number one player in the league, then that shouldn't really matter. People always come back with, to me, do you not understand Patrick Mahomes? Look at the weapons he has on this team. If it weren't for that, he wouldn't be as good as he is. You're joking, if that's your point. He would literally make any player 10 times better. Name the worst receiver you can think of in the league, put him in an offense with Patrick Mahomes, and that guy will succeed. Name the worst tight end, the worst running back, put Patrick Mahomes on the New York Jets, and those guys would succeed. And let's not act like this was this team that was bought for Patrick Mahomes. This was a well-drafted Kansas City Chiefs team. They went into the draft. They've gotten guys in late rounds that have been studs because they're able to develop in the Chiefs system that Andy Reid has now formulated, and even before that. Now, do they have the ability to work around and build a team around Patrick Mahomes now? Absolutely they do. They've been afforded that luxury. But he has done so many things in his first 3 years in the league that, to me, there's not even a second guy that's even close to Patrick Mahomes on this list. He would be number one. Lamar Jackson would be like number 4 to me. Russell Wilson is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. More experience. He's been there. He's done it. He's made it happen. And he can do everything else plus run. Like, Lamar Jackson is a fantastic quarterback and a fantastic football player, but their disrespect to not put Patrick Mahomes at number 1 is mind-blowing. Like, it almost seems fake. There's no way these players got on there and actually said that Lamar's the toughest. He's the best. He does it all. Like, yeah, he may be able to do a lot of things, but Patrick Mahomes can do them, and he does them better. And he, by the way, did all of that last year injured. The guy blew out his kneecap, came back way earlier than anyone ever would have thought was possible, and by the way, played the entire season on a hurt ankle as a quarterback, and won a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP. Yet he's number 4 on the list, even behind a defensive lineman. Patrick Mahomes 100% disrupts a football game. People and teams can find ways to game plan for Russell Wilson, for Lamar Jackson. It's not going to be easy, but it can be done. It might not always work, but it can be done. You cannot game plan for Patrick Mahomes. Any game plan you come up with, he has proven he will find a way to beat it. Even in the losses, he's always right there. He doesn't lose by less than a touchdown in those losses. He's always got the team very close if it's not a win. I mean, think about having a game plan for that guy. It's really just something that drives me up the wall when guys aren't recognized enough for their talent like this. And it especially just adds fuel to my fire because of how Lamar Jackson has been overwhelmingly treated by the media in the league and everybody else. Because the one guy, when he was coming in the league, remember, had the balls to go out there and ask him, would he consider being a running back? And everybody freaked out about it when it was a legitimate question because, oh, by the way, again, he's really good at running the football. It's a legitimate question, and that guy was ruined because of it. And since then, there's been this narrative that we have to act like Lamar Jackson is always thought about as just a running back. And it's just not fair. And we got to make sure we make up for it and make him feel good. Like, I promise you, that doesn't need to happen. Before it's all said and done, and we've already seen in 3 years, there has not been a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes doing things like he's done at his age group. At his age. Dan Marino has been the closest comparison from a lot of people. But what he can do with a football in the most clutch of situations, in the most rare of times where it shouldn't work, is different. He just got signed for 12 years because he's different, and different makes you number one on that list. Hour number 2 coming up. Tom Dorado's joining me on the Afternoon Sports Drive. That's next.
I don't wanna wait for our life to be over. You have it, but you take it how you left it. This is give and take. Take your time, take me under. I wanna know, but you show me what I'm missing. In the plane down in Southern California.
Welcome back. Afternoon Sports Drive, hour number 2. Patrick Wheeler and Tom Dorado's in the building. How are you? I'm fired up, as you know.
I heard a little bit of you coming in, and you sounded like you were pretty much kind of didn't need any energy drink.
I don't. No. Because
you had the energy drink going right there.
I have reason to be energized and fired up about this, as anybody with an actual functioning brain would be. Okay.
And that would be the Mahomes thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you don't put Patrick Mahomes at number 4.
You know, did somebody just walk up and say to a player, give me the top 5 players, or would you have to have at least a little parameter? Well, give me the best runner, give me the best thrower, give me the best leader, give me the best whatever.
I feel like the main ask to these guys was just think of the overall best player in the league right now, marking off every box that you have in your mind. Who would it be?
And how recent was this poll taken?
Well, it was taken by everyone.
No, how recent? Like the last week, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I don't know when the poll was. It was taken for players this past year, from players after, like, for instance, this past season that happened. So anyone that was in the league probably got that poll, right? And so the results were announced finally last night in the top 5.
Okay.
So they've been going through this list.
Which makes it even more amazing that they wouldn't have Mahomes there because he won a Super Bowl.
That was my issue, was that last year he was number 4. Before he won the Super Bowl. Yeah, in the same poll.
Okay.
Before he won the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl MVP. So you're telling me he does that? Lamar Jackson doesn't win a playoff game, and Mahomes doesn't.
Last year, do you remember?
I don't know. I have to go back and look.
Okay.
Lamar was probably ahead of him last year. Look, because there's been this overwhelming, like I said, just love for Lamar Jackson since he got in the league. Okay? Because people went crazy when that guy asked him if he should rather be a running back instead of a quarterback.
Uh-huh.
You know, people went nuts on that. And it was a reasonable question.
Well, what's the Chris Young conspiracy theory? That nobody likes Patrick Mahomes?
I think it's a jealousy thing.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. How else do you just put that? Like,
well, I mean, he's got, 250 million reasons not to be upset, number one.
But did you hear what I said about what his response was?
No, what did he say?
He tweeted, it's up here on the TV.
Oh, a tweet.
He tweeted one emoji, and it was the little notepad emoji, taking notes.
All right.
Remind you of anybody? It reminded me exactly of what Michael Jordan did.
Yeah.
You just unleashed him.
But you still have to go out and do it. I mean,
he already has.
You'll have to go out and do it again.
Okay.
To reemphasize how good you are. And let me step aside. It is difficult in any sport, whether you're a Cy Young Award winner, you're a batting champion, whether you hit the most home runs one year, whether you win a Super Bowl. It is very difficult to go out and duplicate that effort the next year.
I agree. I think that repeating Super Bowl champions is extremely hard, if not the hardest thing to do in sports. But in his first few years in the league now, league MVP, Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion. Come on.
Well, I mean, it speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, I would think. Okay. I would think it would.
And it's hard for me to believe. I give you a hard time, but it is hard for me to believe that anybody could be above him.
That's what I'm saying.
In this poll.
I just don't get it.
That's why I wonder what the parameters would be, other than you just walk up to defensive tackle from the Houston Texans to say, "What do you give me the top 5 quarterbacks?" And he just pulls it out of the air.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that how this poll is done?
That's where my problem is stemming
If
from,
that's the way
because
this poll is done, I wouldn't even waste the oxygen to talk about
I just
it.
can't find the logic behind it, because I said this was my. There's a lot of lists that I like to just because lists are fun to talk about in the summer, right? There's nothing else to talk about.
Well,
lists are something I don't like it.
No,
right?
I don't. No,
I like talking
Because
about
they're just somebody's opinion.
Yeah, but
And
this
sometimes
is
that opinion is, if I couldn't tackle him and he embarrassed me,
right.
then I probably wouldn't rate him very high, okay, because I'm pissed off at him, if in fact that's what they did. But surely there was a list of parameters. Give me the top player and tell me why he is or why he isn't. But it is hard to believe that there would be 4 people ahead of him, though.
Mar Jackson wasn't even on the list last year.
Wow.
Top 100 players.
Well, it's kind of a love affair with him, though, right?
There is.
Is he kind of the quarterback of the
but
the day, of the week?
I'm not. That's what I don't want people to get it twisted. That I'm saying there's not enough love for Patrick Mahomes, because there is. But there's just been this. Like I said, ever since that reporter asked that question, everybody thought that, oh my gosh, nobody believes in this guy. Mm-hmm. Which, no, that's not the case, but I'm not afraid to point out that he still hasn't proven enough to me and a lot of other people that he's a consistent throwing quarterback. Mm-hmm. So, really, I mean, that's where I have the issue.
The only thing that makes any difference is if Mahomes' teammates believe that he's the best, and Mahomes believes he's the best.
No, they know it. I mean,
now
I feel
he's
like
got to go out and show it again. That's all. But I don't think the fact that he's in some, I've never even heard of this poll, but some
top 100 players as voted on
by the
players in the league.
And that was, again, we don't know when that was taken. It was just released, but you don't know when that was taken, right? Which makes it even more amazing, because the closer you got to the hoisting of the Super Bowl trophy, the less discussion there should have been, right?
Yeah. First quarterback in NFL history to win Super Bowl MVP and a league MVP before 25.
Now, Russell Wilson, I mean, I really like Russell Wilson. But I think Russell has kind of lost a step or two. I still think he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, without a doubt. And he maybe didn't have the supporting cast last year up front that he's had in the past. And I wouldn't say that he's a horrible decision. That's a horrible decision. But I think if you're thinking current, you're thinking today, you're thinking this minute, even that would be hard for me to put Wilson ahead of Mahomes.
He's better than Mahomes?
No, I mean, we're splitting hairs, but
but look, I know that he beat Mahomes in that matchup, but like I said, even then, since Mahomes has been a part of the Chiefs, there's never been this like huge blowout loss like we've been used to, right? Mm-hmm. Even in losses, it's like still in the game. So it kind of blows my mind a little bit that players too are just like not giving him the credit. But the first thing that I thought of was just like Michael Jordan, he's taking the notes. Like, did the players just unleash a beast that we still haven't seen?
Well, I bet Kansas City hopes that's
Like, I'd be scared if I'm playing Patrick Mahomes. Anyways, I would. But
you
then,
said he was 4, so who was the other one that I didn't see?
Aaron Donald was number 3.
Wow.
Yeah, you're going to put a defensive lineman over him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, Donald's good.
Oh, he's great.
And believe me, I wish Jackson, Mahomes, and or Wilson were the Giants quarterback. So
I bet you do.
I don't think old Daniel was in that list, was he?
Okay. I really doubt it.
Okay.
Yeah, there was. You know why I also say that? Carson Wentz didn't even make the list. He's a top 100 player in the NFL.
Do you think the perception of Carson Wentz is that he's kind of 1 foot out the door?
I think injuries have played a huge part of it, but he's extremely talented quarterback.
He is when he's healthy.
Yeah. He doesn't get enough credit because he's been hurt so
He
much.
didn't make the list.
He didn't make the list. That's insane.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, so that's where I'm like, how much stock am I going to put in the list anymore with this being out? But it's just
probably none.
Probably none. But it's even better to see Mahomes acknowledge it and just kind of say what he said.
Hang it on the locker room wall.
Yeah,
Kansas City.
This is perfect motivation.
And every time you walk in and out, you just look at it and read it and say, "We'll show you."
There's going to be a time this upcoming NFL season, okay, halfway through the year or whatever, when Patrick Mahomes, Chiefs, they're 10-0 or whatever they start off, and they ask him some question. He goes, "Remember where I got put on the list?"
Ooh, you think that's
going to bring up? And he's going to say, "Well, I'm just getting started." I mean, I would be scared to play Kansas City. Okay, bottom line.
I don't think anybody's scared to play Kansas City. But I mean, they saw the best of Mahomes last year, right?
Well, so far.
Well, I mean, you
Actually, no.
You Chief fans have no idea of reality. How much better can he be than he was a year ago?
He was better the year he didn't win the Super Bowl, statistically, than he was last year. But he was also hurt a couple games.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, Tom, think about the ability that he has. Like, I really honestly think we're starting to witness what's going to be the next Tom Brady, or better. I think it's possible.
Well, the different players, obviously. Winners, I think, on the same leg.
Yeah.
They can will a team to win.
Exactly.
They can carry a team to win.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I may say we might be on the same track with a Brady. But you're still going to have to get in the ring and hang around a while before you get mentioned in the same breath with Tom Brady.
No, again, I'm not saying he's the best to ever do it, but I am saying before it's all said and done, the way that the Chiefs are set up now and the players that they have, okay, it's eerily similar to when all this Tom Brady stuff started back in the day, you know? So that's where I'm drawing comparisons from. But best player in the league actively, yeah. I don't think there's a close second.
Well, it's hard to believe that would not be the case.
Right.
Okay,
we can agree on that. All right. Now that that's over.
feel better?
Yeah, well, no, but yeah.
You didn't vote, and we didn't vote on it, so we
didn't vote on it, but still. Come on. All right, so before you got in, the SEC made their decision on fall football.
I heard it.
Yeah, and then, of course, I figured that was going to happen today at some point. I kind of thought they might do what the ACC talked about, which they ultimately did, was the 10-game schedule plus one is what the ACC's doing. Now, I think a lot of them were hoping that plus one non-conference game would be that SEC game for a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously out the window. I never would have really thought the SEC would do away with all non-conference. At some point here, I thought, too, like I said, with the ACC, maybe the SEC kind of does the exact same thing because I still think that's doable. Now, the ACC also, their non-conference game has to be in their state, so it has to be close. But the SEC, to get rid of it completely, like I said before you came in here, I'm not just like completely disappointed because, to be honest, SEC against SEC is the best anyways, for the most part, in football. So no one's going to complain about that. But there were a couple of games that were slated this year to happen, non-conference, that I was really excited about seeing. It's not going to be the case. So first of all, are you surprised about the SEC? And then we'll get into here in a minute if the Big 12 ultimately follows.
Yes, I got to think so, because, and I'm watching from outside in. I'll be interested to see. I mean, let's face it. Just a week ago, Greg Sankey was the voice of college football, right? And everything he said was gospel, and that the SEC would show everybody exactly how football is going to be played and what's important in life. And we're going to step out and we're going to take on all 12 games and the hell with the rest of you. Well, obviously it didn't work out that way. So I'm not naive enough to think that it was probably a unanimous decision, because there probably were some presidents and or ADs in the SEC who wanted to do that. Hey, we're fine. We're the SEC, man. We're going to do it. But obviously it didn't turn out that way. So I throw this up at you. There had to be a reason that the mighty SEC decided not to play all the games. And it has to do, and not even start till September 26th.
Yeah.
I could make the observation long distance that they had to have some safety concerns, or they wouldn't have made this decision. The mighty SEC wouldn't have made this decision. Mm-hmm. And I'm being facetious here, but maybe, in fact, they had a problem with starting and fighting the infections and fighting the numbers. And maybe they did have a problem with traveling around. And maybe they did take the advice of some CDC people. I'll be interested in seeing, will they get ripped and roasted like the Big Ten? Will they get roasted like the Pac-12?
And look,
the answer is no.
No, and I did rip the Big 12, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, because they made that decision way too early.
But it's the same bottom line.
I know, but they jumped the gun at that time. Now, the SEC, that's my thing, is I didn't want them to be associated with what the Pac-12 and the Big Ten did, because I thought that was a decision, a lot of it I thought was made out of fear. Now, the SEC doing it now? I mean, did they really take these last couple of weeks to consider everything?
Apparently.
Or was this always going to be the plan too?
I know. I would imagine the SEC was full speed ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think
until somebody or some people got up there and said, wait a minute.
Right.
We're not going full speed ahead.
that's why it's probably surprising to some is that they did take this time and still came to that decision and didn't even do the +1 like the ACC's doing.
Could it be they did their homework? Could it be they actually were not comfortable with the numbers? Could it be they were not comfortable with the potential of having more COVID-19
no, I'm sure
cases?
that had something to do with it.
You think that might have had something to do with it?
No, I'm not going to say that it doesn't. I think it does. But, they're also claiming, hey, look, we're just like the Big 12 is, that we're waiting and being told by these medical professionals what to do with these big decisions, and they're telling us to stay patient and wait, and as long as we possibly can. Was this as long as the SEC could go?
Apparently.
So does the Big 12 is making the same talks, right? Like that's been Bob Bowlesby's point this entire time. So the Big 12 has two options here. They can either be that lone Power 5 that finds a way to get in a full schedule, or I guess they have three options. Do what the ACC did, +1, which I think is probably most likely at this point, or do what the SEC did and just go to conference only.
Well, I'm not an optics guy, but pull yourself back from the situation. Let's just say, and there'll be no scoop when they come out, when the Big 12 comes out. Bowlesby's been all over this for a month. He's giving you every option every time he opens his mouth. Mm-hmm. So nothing the Big 12 does is going to be, other than if they come out and say, we're not playing football till next year. That would be a surprise.
Right.
So there'll be no drama here with the Big 12. He has given you every possible option for the past month and never honed in on any of them. But take the optics. If that bothers anybody, let's say they come out with we're going to play a full schedule. We're going to play 12 games. Do you think some would look at that and go, SEC, Big Ten, ACC, and we know it's not this way, but the Big 12, all you care about is playing 12 football games, and you don't take into account anything that's going on with this pandemic, while your brothers and brethren around the country have done that. Now, I think that would play a role in the decision making, but my feel is I'm almost certain the decision's already done. Okay, with the Big 12, it's just a matter of when they're going to announce it.
The cards have been stacked against them now. That's no doubt. I mean, like you said, from an optics standpoint, yeah, if they were to stick with the full schedule, people would jump out like they already did, like they already have, and be like, these guys don't care. When to me, that's not the case at all. They are seeing that it is possible. I mean, I think Bob Bowlesby threw that option out there because he believes that they can actually get that done. But, and then two now, with the announcement that we can even move games up, right? The NCAA said we can start on August 29th. So with that being the case...
But the mighty SEC said they're going to start them on the 26th of September.
Right. So does that carry enough influence to make little brother Big 12 say we got to do the same thing? Or do they take that stand finally and they're like, you know what? We're going to be the one. Because think about it. Bob Bowlesby's weighing this. He's like, optically, but if I really think and I'm being told that it can happen by these professionals, how does that make the Big 12 look to some people like, hey, look, they don't care. They're going for it. Like, some people would applaud that, right, and commend them for still trying to stick with it.
I don't know what the percentages would be, but for everyone who said, yeah, that's great, get in there and push ahead, you'd have two who look at it and say, you don't give a damn about the kids, and you just out of there. It's a money grab, and you're going to go grab the money 12 times. First of all, Bowlesby's not going to make the decision. But Bowlesby's going to tell you what the decision is. The presidents, with help from the ADs and some input from coaches, either have already made it or will have made it shortly. And they're the ones who will come forth with the thing that Bowlesby tells you whenever it is. Could be tomorrow. I mean, I can't believe they would put Bowlesby up on the firing line Monday without anybody knowing.
I kind of said that I wouldn't be surprised. Does the Big 12 pull a Friday night news dump, throw it out there, and they let it simmer over the weekend, right?
Maybe. I mean, and then this way you could follow up on it Monday and said, Bob, here's what you said this week, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back to the reality of it all. If the presidents feel like that you can play 12 games, they're going to do it because the presidents, above everything else, understand money, okay? they're in the same battle with bringing students back to campus throughout the Big 12. If you went too early with a decision that said, we're not going to have on campus stuff, we're going to just do online, you ran the risk of Patrick Wheeler in hometown America going, well, if I can't be in Stillwater, hell, I'll just go someplace else. Well, guess what? Patrick's not paying tuition. You multiply Patrick 100 times, that tuition hit will affect the university as a whole. The university's not going to get as much money appropriation-wise as they've had in years past out of the state because the state coffers are down. So the presidents have to be aware of the, and they are aware. They understand the more football games you play, the more money that comes in to the athletic department, and thus it could help the university. But at the same time, they have to believe in their hearts that, and they've been in concert with presidents with the SEC. Okay, Mr. Vanderbilt, what did you vote and why? I mean, I'm a little surprised. Well, I did a blah, 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 blah. Well, so yes, the SEC will have some bearing, I think, on what the Big 12 does. But I do think the Big 12's already pretty much locked in what they're going to do. And it wouldn't surprise me because everybody's got a shot at get the N1. You're going to play your 9 anyway. You're going to play conference games. And pretty much everybody's, I haven't looked at everybody's non-conference, but everybody's probably got that one on their non-conference that they can lock in. Without traveling all over the world and playing stuff like at Oklahoma State and Tulsa.
Right. That's why it surprised me the most with the SEC not going with the +1 because that seems extremely doable. I mean,
there has to be a reason.
Yeah, but the ACC also has to have a reason for doing it, right? So I mean, so the Big 12. If I'm, like I said earlier, if I'm putting chips on it, that's where I'm guessing they're going. I would be surprised at this point after what I've said about what Texas has said, what Oklahoma's trying to do with Missouri State, what TCU's trying to do, all of this. When I put that into factor, if anything, I still think they're trying to hold on to that +1. I would be really surprised if they went to a completely no non-conference because then you do have some of that, hey, look, we're still able to make our own decision without looking and doing what the SEC does, but at the same time, we're trying to act like, everything, like we want to make sure everybody understands that we care, and we care about the health and everything like that, so we're going to cancel a couple games here, right? So they can meet in the middle there?
I mean, it would be kind of a, I guess meeting in the middle is probably a good way of putting it, I guess. But I think they have to believe that, though, Patrick. I don't think that these decisions you could just make on a, well, I hope the people in the SEC don't get mad at us, or I don't think you make those decisions that way. You have to evaluate your own region, your own area. Take a look at the towns in your conference, in the communities in your conference. Some are fine. A lot of them in the state of Texas are probably not. But at the same time, you've got to make a general across-the-board thing. And I think, again, one probably is I don't think you're giving in, but at the same time, you'll catch. Now, whether you care about it or not, that's immaterial. I'm not in those meetings. But I promise you'll get roasted if you go 12 games. Now, I'm telling you, you will have to live with that for a number of weeks, and there'll be writers and broadcasters who would take the Big 12 apart for you don't care. That would be the bottom line. You don't care about the players. All you care about is 12 games of money.
Right.
Now, we know that's not true.
Right.
But that would be the perception. So do you give in to the perception, or do you say, I'll take the conference games and N1, and that'll be, I don't think it's a great deal, but it's probably better than nothing.
I think the Pac-12, I think Larry Scott cared about the perception. I think the Big Ten did as well. That's why they made that move so early. They didn't want to be the ones that were labeled that. Now, does Greg Sankey? Probably a little bit. That makes me think of, I'm not saying, again, that he's not making this in a best decision in his mind, and they're all doing this in their minds because it's the best health-wise situation.
Keep in mind, Sankey, just like Bowlesby, he's telling you what he was been told to do.
Right. So they ultimately said to him,
Sankey may not believe in this.
Yeah, he may not. So and maybe he'll make that clear at some point where he's like, look, I wanted to play all these games, and so that's why I don't know if different but the same at the same time. Professionals are telling Bob Bowlesby in his area, we can see you could probably get away with this. He's going to pull the trigger.
Believe that's okay.
Yeah.
Then play as many games as you can.
If they believe it's okay, if he gets word from them that that's that, and he can bring that back and say, I was told this by these people, then he has, in my opinion, no reason to care what anybody comes on and writes and says about him.
Well, no, you have to have thick skin. I mean, you have to make this decision, whether you're Sankey or Bowlesby or any of the other commissioners, knowing full well that there's going to be some who agree with you and some who don't. So the skin has to really be thick. You can't go into this tiptoeing around hoping, oh man, I don't want anybody to get mad at me. If this is the decision that the president's making the Big 12, and they think deep down inside wholeheartedly that we could play all 12 games, then that's what they should do if they believe in that. I'm just throwing out the national perception, though, would be not that, hey, look at the Big 12, but they're pioneers and they just trudging through and they're going to take their chances. It would be in light of the SEC. If there was a conference that was going to do that, it would be the SEC, and people would just sit back and say, well, I guess it must be good if they're doing it. You know, the SEC, they never screw up. Well, there's a reason they only want the conference games.
Yeah.
Okay? And what's that? It's still 10 for them, though, right?
Yeah, it's still 10.
Okay.
Yeah. So, again, bottom line with what's happening with them, it's going to lose any sleep over all these games that they're not going to end up playing in the
Probably
SEC.
not.
I mean,
By starting later, I would anticipate that they are anticipating, knocking on wood, that maybe starting the 26th, things will ease a bit, and then we'll start bringing some people into our stadiums to watch these matchups and make a buck.
It's definitely possible. It'd be interesting.
SEC, I mean, the SEC network will be all over those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You know, this will be. You know, it's not a huge loss for playing football fans, but it is strange that they didn't do at least kind of the +1 in my opinion. ACC, when we come back, they will have one more team part of their conference this year. Is that the right way to go? We'll talk about it next. Welcome back. Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Tom Dorado with you on Thursday. So the ACC, that was actually going to be the main topic I was going to talk to you about today, was the ACC's decision. Well, obviously then the SEC came out with their bomb news. But the ACC going to that +1, but also I think we hit on this yesterday a little bit, but not a lot, that Notre Dame is now going to be a part of the conference. And I think this is really intriguing because it helps the ACC. Like the ACC as a whole, I'm talking, commissioner and presidents at some place, they're probably like, this is actually good. Okay, more money, more viewership.
I'm assuming they're going to get some of that NBC.
Yeah, exactly. Is that
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So more money, more viewership with the ratings that are going to be on NBC with the Notre Dame games. But as teams in the ACC, personally, some coaches, for instance, probably not too happy about this because I believe ACC or the Notre Dame immediately asserts themselves as the number 2 team in the ACC because we all know that Clemson runs it. There's not a ton of competition that would threaten Clemson. There's some decent teams that you can mix in there, but not enough. Like every year, right? We look at it for the past however many years now, and we can mark down Clemson is going to have this just wrapped up. But to me, Notre Dame, not only that will they, to me, be the number 2 team, but now they have an actual shot at taking the ACC championship. If they get on a roll and happen to beat out Clemson, they could win the conference championship, get into the college football playoff, still as a team that doesn't even have a conference. That would be like invading and taking over, and I think it'd be interesting to watch.
I think it's an intriguing combination. Somebody was on top of their game, I think, to get that done. It does benefit both sides, as I see it from a distance. I don't think it's going to be a lasting deal. I mean,
no.
Because Notre Dame, people say, why don't they get in the conference? Because every penny that NBC pays up, it goes to them.
They made a lot of money being
They don't have to share with
That's
anybody.
right.
The only thing they share about it is in their own budget.
Why do you think they've been that way since the 1800s?
And plus, they got a name. They got a name that's national.
Yeah.
They got a name maybe that's global.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a one-time thing. Will it enhance their ability to get in? Sure. If they somehow could. Well, where's the game against Clemson? Is it in South Bend or?
They haven't released the schedule yet. So
well, let's just say it's in South Bend.
Yeah.
And they beat Clemson, and they go undefeated, which is saying a lot. I mean, I don't know if Notre Dame is just a lock to go undefeated.
No, but would they? To you, are they immediately number 2, or are they at least vying for that spot?
Well, yeah, because I don't think the ACC is just loaded with a lot of power.
It's not.
But you're talking about Clemson. Every conference has a power broker. I mean, you just look around. Every conference has one power broker team. Alabama, Oklahoma.
Well, it's arguably the SEC has 2 now with LSU.
Yeah, but I still think if you had to choose, it'd be Alabama, probably on longevity.
Okay, over the history of
Clemson. But is somebody going to have enough stuff to go beat them? And just because Notre Dame may come in and have a beat on the bully on the block, you still have to go beat them on the field.
Yeah.
And Clemson will hike their game up big time when they play Notre Dame. They're not in this thing looking at Notre Dame and say, oh, yeah, it's good to have you. Good to have. We're just going to give you the title. I mean, that's not going to happen.
No, but see, that's the thing is there's going to be teams like, North Carolina comes to mind because they're actually, they have a little bit of talent this year. We all know how it typically turns out. But teams like that would be second place. Let's say that Clemson jumps them or Notre Dame jumps them, and you're like, wow, that would have been our spot. We would have had a shot at the ACC
If you wanted to be your spot, then go make it.
I know
your
it's
spot.
just it's something that they have to adapt to, which is it's just a unique circumstance because we know a lot of other independents that are out there, like UMass and Liberty and all that. If there was a team like that found their way into a Power 5, you'd be like, well, you don't really care. But
this is not a normal
Notre Dame
at all.
But Notre Dame poses such a significant threat, I think, to a conference as weak as the ACC. I think Notre Dame benefited from this so much, popping in here and having a chance to win a conference championship, for crying out loud, that would assert them into the college football playoff. I mean, this could, if everything worked out well, this could really be the year for Notre Dame. But on top of it, you have to think too, they may have been in one of the weaker Power 5s, but look at who is the top dog in that ACC.
Well, in order to get to where they want to go, they're going to have to beat Clemson.
Yeah, which arguably best team in the
and they're not.
country.
I mean, just because they're in it doesn't mean they're going to win it.
No.
And Notre Dame had no other choice. I mean, what did they lose? 3 or 4 games on their schedule. So now they've just made up everything.
Yeah,
it's a win-win thing, but I have a little bit more knowledge of Notre Dame because, at one time in my mind I thought I was going to play at Notre Dame, but going to a Catholic high school, pretty much every Catholic high school in the world is a feeder system for Notre Dame. So I got a little bit of insight there, but they're not afraid of playing, but they're not going to give up the autonomy they had prior to the pandemic. And I would imagine they'll hike right back to South Bend next year and just be an independent again.
No, they will.
Because you're going to look, I could have made $50 this year, but I only made 30.
Yeah, especially if things are back to normal. They will 100% be back as
This is just a good situation, really, probably for both.
I wouldn't want to be. See, I try to put my mindset as if I were a fan of an ACC team. Okay, like a diehard fan of an ACC team. What would I think about? I think part of me would be like, also depending on who I was a fan of, but it'd be like, okay, Notre Dame's coming in here. That's good for us. That's a little bit more competition. But at the same time, it's like there's another roadblock now that we have to get over. Clemson was already in the way. Now you add Notre Dame, which to a lot of people arguably could be number 2 in the ACC. So yeah, I think it's going to be tough for fans of teams like a North Carolina or a Florida State or whatever. That's like, we were going to go for something this year, and now we have another hurdle on top of a pandemic that we're trying to deal with as well.
Well, I think they'll look at it like, for years, the pipe dreamers have wanted to get Notre Dame in the Big 12. Wouldn't it be great to get? Well, if Notre Dame would have joined the Big 12 some year, I mean, you think everybody wouldn't jack their game up more every time they played Notre Dame? What I'm saying, Notre Dame's not an automatic to finish second.
No, I don't think so. But what I'm basing that off of is because it just so happens to be the ACC. If they had done it into the Big 12, coming to the Big 12, they definitely would not be second. They'd be trying to push in top 5.
Maybe
honestly.
try to get in the upper division. Yeah.
So, but the ACC being as weak as it has been in the past and completely dominated by one team, it's fair, I think, to say, why not put them in number 2 based off what their history has been? Because they've had success.
And Notre Dame has to understand, which I'm sure they do. I mean, Brian Kelly, those guys understand the game. Yeah, we jumped into a league, but, we're going to get everybody's shot. We're going to have to play, 10 games as good as we can play, or 9 games, I guess it would be, in that league, because everybody's coming after us. It's not going to be like our independent schedule, where sometimes you get, Navy's been good, but sometimes you get some teams on that schedule that just automatic win.
Yeah, no, this will definitely also...
They're going to have to up their game.
Yeah, this will definitely be a proving year, too, for Notre Dame, in a way, because when they are scheduled up against all these big ACC
they're going to get their best shot.
Yeah, they're going to have solid, and I say weak conference, but they're still going to have solid competition, maybe, like you said, compared to some games in the past, where they might have to, prepare a little bit better and be ready to face a little bit stiffer competition at some point here. 2, I think that so many conferences, there's really good returning programs, but there's going to be, I think, a lot of wrenches thrown into this season where we might see a lot of different cases where it's like it's anybody's ball game all of a sudden.
Well, I think so, especially if it's a stop-and-go season. Nobody can predict that. I don't care when you start. If it starts the 26th of September, there's no assurance you're going to be playing in the 3rd week of October. And when you start that late, that's what kind of... Now, they're going all the way to December, right, in the SEC?
Yeah, the
championship game?
Yeah, the championship game, I think December 13th or 19th.
Have they built in...
yeah, there's 1 week where they for sure are going to have an empty week, so everybody... Or actually, I think there's 2 in the ACC, kind of like what the Pac-12 is doing, if I remember right, because I think the SEC is throwing 1 in there, too, kind of an open week for everybody to get a shot there in case, cancel game or whatever.
I was more concerned, though, with the... whatever league, I thought it was a great plan. Start on the 29th, 2 weeks, play, 2 weeks, play, especially until everybody can figure out whether contact football and, spitting and whatever, lack of social distancing on a football field will result in anything. But if you condense everything in a shorter period of time, now I guess you're at the risk of having to report, we got 15 guys and we're not going to play. So, but let's not borrow trouble. I mean, right now that's not the case. That could be, could be. But I'll be interested in seeing, look, I know they've already talked, okay? So whenever the Big 12 comes out with its decision, it will not be a surprise because they've already put in their 2 cents. In fact, I would imagine most of the schools now are in the review process. Here's what I think we're going to do as a group. You got it for another 24 hours, whatever. Go over it again. ADs, presidents, coaches. Find out what you like, what you don't like.
Is it arguable, though, to say that it could be a surprise if they ultimately stick with a full season?
It would be a surprise to me, because perceptually and optically, that would not lead me in that direction. But I'm not an optics guy. I mean, if you firmly believe that there is no risk, but and again, I go to this, you just read me a quote, from the SEC's throwing out, the reason we did this is for the safety of our students, okay? A lot of those... Not all of them, but some of those states aren't too far away from Oklahoma in the SEC. So if they're concerned, the optics would be, well, you guys in the Big 12, are you not concerned just like them?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if that would govern their decision.
What you're going to get from me...
It would surprise me if it was 12. Yeah, it would.
What you're going to get from me is if it is 12 still, it's not going to be, oh my gosh, this is crazy, I shouldn't have done this. I mean, everybody's going to be, at least around here, I think it's like, okay, I mean, hey...
Well, they won't make this decision foolishly.
No, I mean, yeah.
They'll make it with every piece of information that they've been able to weigh.
Yeah.
because these guys, I mean, they all have to live with this decision. and if a conference like the Big 12 went out and said, we're going to play all 12, just like you said we were, and we're going to have everybody come to the stadium. Well, okay. I don't know if that's going to happen, but and things don't go right in the numbers category, then you're going to have to live with the results.
Yeah. Speaking of that, when we come back, one school has already had to quarantine their football team because it has actually been found out that players attended a party, got coronavirus, brought it back.
Another party.
Yeah, another party. I'll tell you who that was. And also, just worth mentioning, the NBA kicks off tonight, by the way. I mean, sports are back, right, in pro levels at least. Major League Baseball already underway. NBA kicks off tonight officially, and hockey kicks off on Saturday. So
somebody texted me today and said, since Joe Kelly's got time on his hands, he can go to any party he wants and get the coronavirus.
Hey, he can go. He's good. Yeah, he can go to the bar hop if he needs to. Yeah, he'll be fine. Yeah. Just don't get near anybody else when you come back to the team.
Just say I've been here.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll talk about much more when we come back on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Welcome back. Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio. Patrick Wheeler and Tom Dorado as we get ready to wrap it up here. So yeah, one school decided that they would be the ones to officially break the barrier, because that's been one of our most fun topics, right, to talk about, is like these guys that are going to go out there and party, get the coronavirus and bring it back. Well, we finally have one documented. There might have been plenty of others that have already done it, and I think that's the case, but this one got documented because it was on campus. That's why.
Okay.
So there's been plenty. Like, I still say, we all know, we're not dumb. We all know why Clemson had their outbreak. The guys got back and went to the bars and chased girls. Same thing at K-State. Probably the same thing here at Oklahoma State, to be honest.
It hadn't been a strike either.
Yeah, I mean, it's
4th of July weekend.
Right. So all that played into it. But the fact that this one, they knew where it was. It happened on campus. The contact tracing was made to where it was listed as there's been a bunch of gatherings, indoor and outdoor, around Rutgers University.
Oh, my famous university.
Your favorite.
Yeah.
So this one happened on campus. They linked it back to a number of guys testing positive and getting it from that party. They actually linked it, okay? This isn't speculation.
Wow.
So we're finally getting to see that, yes, this is indeed something that is real. And I hate myself right now, okay? Because I don't want to be the guy that comes on and is like, please don't go out there and party, college football players. Because I want them to go do whatever and be, enjoy their time now as a star college football player at their university. Not even a star, but the fact that you're on a college football team, right, is enough. So I don't want to do that. But at this point, I guess it's almost like, look, if you're going to go do that, can you at least get it out of the way now? Is that fair to say? Is that fair to ask?
Well, if you're just looking at it from that perspective, that's probably a legitimate request, I guess.
Well, I mean, you would, in a perfect world, like, you would want to stop them from doing it, And I have to think, because we just saw another report today, Oklahoma still no positives there. I have to think that some of these places that are getting these really low numbers to no positives have a stranglehold a little bit on this.
Apparently.
But with that not being the case everywhere, which we know, it's almost like to the point where, if we're seeing right now, we're seeing the ACC, the SEC, all these big Power Fives saying we're going to have football and here's how we're going to do it, then it's like, okay, since we know that's probably going to be the case here, so just get out of your system at this point. It's almost to that point. Isn't that crazy? But
yeah, I mean, but college life being what it is, I mean, we've talked about this 8 million times. And I understand the bottom line. You just tell them. I'm sure the players are told every single day, more than they ever want to hear, everywhere. Obviously, at Rutgers, it didn't ring true. Oh, Sean Gleason's probably not too happy up there now, huh? No.
Yeah,
but
probably not.
Don't know if they're offensive or defensive players, but yeah, I don't. It's not I don't think it's realistic to think that's going to be the case. You can preach all day long. You don't have that leverage over players. I mean, in a college, they're not your employees.
They can only...
And you can't bubble the university. You just can't.
Right.
You can do everything in the world possible.
Yeah.
Disinfect 1,000,000 times a day.
And say so much. You can only say so much.
But if you get a call, this guy gets a call, and this guy gets a call, say, hey, we don't have practice till tomorrow at 3. And so and so's back from Oak City, and her girlfriend from Tulsa, and they're gonna have a little get together. We'll just go by. We're not gonna get involved. We just go by, say hello. Well, you think that you're gonna keep 18, 19, 20-year-old kids in check for 4 months?
See, that's the thing, is that you have to put your minds back into where they are. The level of self-control that it would take, I think, is pretty high, especially for the younger you are. Now, some of these seniors on these teams, they might be like, find a way to do it, But some of these younger guys, they're just experiencing college for the first time or still getting around to it. I mean, it's tough. I don't want to say that the universities that are getting these zero positives are better than others because they're taking it more serious.
Maybe
but
more fortunate.
Yeah, and they could be. I mean, yeah, there's nothing to say that some of these guys at Oklahoma haven't been doing the same thing and just haven't come down with it, because that's 100%.
And what you're fighting, too, is the other side. It's great to be asymptomatic, and it's great to say, hey, guys, women, guys, this age group, 18, 21, I mean, they're not going to get sick. If they get it, okay, so be it. They're not going to get sick. But that mentality also is one that might one weekend say, I'm not sick. I don't even have this thing. Let's just go by and say hello.
Yeah.
And then we'll be done with it. Well,
what would get me is that, like I said the other day, the fact that they're testing so often,
right?
Like, you can't escape knowing if you have it or not.
No, because you're going to find out in a hurry.
It'd be one thing if they were testing every other 2 weeks or something like that, or once a month. You might find your way out of it and get away with it. But the fact that you're getting tested so often, the chance of getting it and then knowing it and then being forced into a quarantine, to me, would be like, okay, that's probably at the point where I'm saying this isn't worth it.
And keep in mind, you could be doing everything perfect.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And two guys from the football team decide, we're out of this, so we're going to Walmart. We're going to wear a mask and all. And I'm just using that as an example. I mean, these guys get around town. It doesn't have to be a party. I mean, they could be going about their normal life.
Right.
And all of a sudden, there it is.
Yeah.
And they get it. So unless you can keep them in their rooms for the next 4 months and don't let them out for anything.
Yeah. Look, and then to say it too, coaches don't want their guys getting in now anyways. They don't want them to miss any type of practice time, whatever they're about to start doing. They don't want them to miss any reps. But also, I think you're telling your guys, look, you need to be taking this serious. You need to not put yourself in high-risk situations. We're seeing what can happen with the Miami Marlins, for instance. Mm-hmm.
Or Rutgers.
Yeah. I would be preaching that like times 100 when the season starts. It's like, look, if whatever you did during the off season, and if you attended this party or went here or went there and put yourself in a high risk situation, it's past that now. But at this point, when we're actually playing games, I think maybe that's where it starts getting even a little bit more serious for guys that aren't taking it that serious now, right? When they know that they'll lose out on the opportunity to possibly play a game.
And what else did they see, too? I mean, they see something like their buddies playing in an all-star game last weekend in Shawnee, where it looked like there was no pandemic at all. People jammed into the stands, no masks. It depends on how serious you take this. Now, once school starts, you probably have a little bit more control. I hate that word, but you have more to say about their time spent. But they're still not in the school zone, if you will. So if they get some time off, maybe they get some time off Saturday night or something, and they don't have a workout till Sunday, you can't keep them from getting in the car and driving home to see somebody.
Yeah, with being a college athlete, I mean, like you said, you can only put you can do what universities are doing right now, which is setting it up to where it's the safest spot to be. But once your control, which is what it is, leaves with your student athletes, it's an honor system thing. I mean, it just is. I mean, it's a tough spot to be in as a young kid, in the getting into the part of your life where it's like, because it's college life. Like, no college student should have to experience what's going on right now as part of their college life.
And let's call it the way it is. If you're a student athlete and you're a high-profile student athlete in any sport on the college campus, there are people who want to be around you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay?
Yeah, it's even worse. That's why
you're somebody they know.
Yeah, it's going to take a serious level of self-control for a lot of these guys, and we're going to see who has it.
And the women are the same way. I mean, when they get back on campus,
sure,
you're in the same boat. I mean, you cannot.
Yeah, any student athlete.
You cannot expose yourself to this because it's going to hurt the team. But you can preach. I'm telling you, Patrick, as a coach, you could preach.
Oh, I know.
23 and a half hours a day. Mm-hmm. But on that 1/2 hour that you didn't say it, and somebody says, let's just go over and see that might be the time.
I know. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's a tough line right now. Again, just a reminder, the NBA is back tonight. Jazz and the Pelicans at 5:30, Clippers, Lakers at 8 o'clock. Real action that actually counts. It was interesting. I didn't get to it today. I'll get to it tomorrow, but they're actually starting the NBA season tonight on a day where ESPN released this bombshell report regarding the NBA over in China, which has been the huge issue a lot of people have brought up with, why won't they talk about what's going on in China? They refuse. In short, there was an academy, NBA academy over there that had Chinese coaches that have been reported to, they were verbally and physically abusing players. One guy actually referenced it to being like Nazi Germany over there. Wow. There's a lot of crazy stuff. It's released by ESPN too, which ESPN and NBA, they're in bed together. It was crazy to see that they actually came out and wrote this, and it was published and released on the day the NBA came back. It's fascinating. I encourage you to go read it. A lot of stuff put in there about how the thing that got a lot of people was the NBA spokesperson for this was kind of backpedaling and was like, look, we didn't really have as much control as we wanted over there. Maybe we shouldn't have been in that situation, but still refusing to kind of condemn China for what's going on, which is nuts. I mean, there's been so much to it that, for instance, Josh Hawley in Missouri has called out the NBA, finally got a response. That's
what's his name, Woj got
said the FU back to him. Maybe that had something to do with the report, having to come out and say something to back it up. But I mean, there's so much going on with it that it's actually coming to light so much at this point where people are seeing the hypocrisy that the NBA has shown this entire time. Why? Because they make $5 billion by having the NBA in China. So there's
isn't it? Can you always trace it back to one thing?
Yeah. It's all about the money. That's right. Yeah, we should have that like painted up in here so we just never forget.
Well, I think most of us know that.
We do.
It's just not. It's really always not nice to say that.
No,
you would like to come up with different ideas.
Yeah, but it's just in a situation like this, how extreme it is in China right now. We know the situation with Hong Kong. They literally have 1 million plus Muslims in concentration camps over there. We're living in 2020. And that's happening in a country right now. It's crazy. So, and they won't talk about it. So people are bringing it to light, so much so that ESPN drops this report, which, again, I encourage everybody to go check it out for yourselves. I'll talk about it more tomorrow. But, yeah, it's really fascinating. Again, the NBA starts tonight. If you're an NBA fan or if you just want to see basketball back, besides the basketball tournament, we finally got it back, right? This is the first real.
I think I'll keep pedaling through the no fans baseball.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that as well. The Cardinals have the night off, which I can't believe I'm saying this, but they need. So yeah, your Mets play tonight, right?
Yeah. And
they got
how about 15? They got Boston to wrap up their four game. 15 hits last night and they lose a game.
Wow, that should never happen.
2 double plays, key strikeouts, loaded the bases at the bottom of the ninth. Nobody out and scored 1 run.
That's
pretty brutal.
Not good.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us here.
The Red Sox we're talking.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, that's going to do it for us here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Yeah, it's all about the money and free Joe Kelly. I'll say that again.
Free Joe
Kelly. That's been the hashtag since yesterday. Keep it going until he gets freed. That's Tom Dorado. I'm Patrick Wheeler. This has been the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. We'll be back tomorrow.